3 weeks ago, we took delivery of a 2016 Lexus ES350. We swapped out our 2010 for this thing, and so far we've been very impressed with it. It's basically our mule. We use it for long distance travel and for hauling our stuff. We don't need a 4x4 at this stage anymore, but it does come in handy for long trips, and we can be quite nicely packed for it, and it serves the purpose real well. We've got just about 2,000 miles on it, and in that time we've come to really enjoy it. It's got a lovely ride, and you know, it's a nice boulevard cruiser without the mushmobile ride. You put this thing in the sports mode, it stiffens things up a bit. Obviously it's not a sports car, but the ride is a lot better, and the response is nicer. So for a four-door sedan, which is what it is, you know, it's not a performance car, we're very happy with what we got. Now, not to be one that can leave well enough alone, I mean, this car has most of the conveniences in it you could want, but obviously I had to add a couple things. And one of the things we added was a dash cam. I wired this into the overhead. I will include the link for that video. And we wired in a passport that goes to the mirror. Now, these were two relatively easy mods to do, and you know, they were pretty quick. If I was going to redo the dash cam, I'd probably wire it up with the radar detector and get them out of the way, reroute the wires differently than I did. But still, not a big deal. Happy with the way it worked out. Now, the other thing I wanted was, you may have noticed as I've made a pass by here, we sometimes use we'll put our phones up on the dash here. You know, my wife says if you're doing a 9-hour trip, the batteries tend to run dead. So to avoid having a USB cable hanging or cables hanging all over the place, since the USB and 12-volt convenience outlets are in the glove box, and I didn't want to string the cables, you know, over the dash and over the console to get to the phones. I decided I was going to run them up to the front of the car and bring them out here. You can see I have one here. I had hoped to do the video while I was doing it. You know, I coiled it up, and we have it on Velcro, and stick it to the side here so it's out of the way. Did the same thing on this side for my wife, and what we did was we ran it out of the glove box. Now, in the glove box we have our 12-volt convenience outlet. There's also the USB outlet. I keep a USB memory stick there with my music on it. Although I could plug these cables in over there. I don't know if they're putting out 2 amps for charging. So, because the phones will charge quicker, charge better on 2 amps, I use a 12-volt adapter that puts out 2.1 amps and routed the cables. Now, as you can see, they come through the console over here. I was able to drill a 3/8 inch hole to get the cables through. The hole was drilled from the other side, not from inside the dash, and it's hardly noticeable. The glove box itself I did not have to remove, but the panels lift right up. You know, this one came up first, lifted right out. Then the shifter bezel, of course you have to put the shifter in neutral, and you can either do that while the engine's on, put it in neutral and then shut it down, or you have your manual release under the clip there. The only issue I had was I would have loved to have taken off the shift knob, but it seems attached to the boot, and I didn't see where the boot could come off very easily. But I was able to get things out of the way enough by unhooking the wiring harnesses that they just popped right up and moved out of the way. I was able to get a drill in there and route my wires. The passenger side, I had the wire come down under the side plate. I think you can see that there. Okay, you know, it comes down next to the seat, and I just hung it up there so she's got plenty of lead. I use 6-foot lengths. And on this side, to make it a little more convenient, although I hung it on the side the same way, it actually comes out between the dash and the console so that it routes up to the holder a little easier. Makes it a little more convenient on trips, simpler. I would suggest if you decide to lift the panels, as I said, they pop straight up. Use a panel remover, you know, one of those tools that will not mar your finish, you know, and use them to pop it up. There was no problem. They were able to gently move to the side and get out of the way. I was able to route the wires. I was able to get a drill in there, and then everything just laid back in place. The wire there was no hassle getting the panel back in place. There was enough of a gap for it to handle the wire without crimping it or cutting it. So just a little solution. If you're like me and you don't like having the wires all over the place, you know, when you're traveling, it was a nice way to keep my phone plugged in so I could use Waze on the trip, yeah, and keep my phone charged, and just made for a nice, neat, at least I thought, a nice, neat way of getting a USB outlet to the front of the car. And that's what I used for the radar detector and the camera. Those are MicroUSB adapters I used up there, and everything worked well.